Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for this webinar, where we are going to have a look at ArcGIS GeoPlanner and see how we can utilize it to compare our planning designs, our planning developments, and get to come to a point where we are then able to select the most suitable among these plans that fits our planning objectives. As Victor mentioned, my name is Latma, and I'm joined by a few of my colleagues today. I hope you'll get to interact with us in the chat box. If you have any questions, feel free to do that, and we'll get to answer your questions. So before we actually look at what ArcGIS GeoPlanner is, I think it is important for us to then look at where we are within our planning designs before actually coming to get to see how ArcGIS GeoPlanner then plays a role in our planning processes and in our planning, creating our planning policies. So it is estimated currently that 55% of the world's population lives in urban areas. And if we want to break this down into numbers, that is roughly 4.2 billion inhabitants who live in our cities today. Now, this trend is actually expected to rise within the next years, and at the speed at which we are growing, there are challenges that we end up facing as a society. Think about not being able to access affordable housing, for example, or not being able to access well-connected transport systems. And these are just some of the examples that we can think about. When we think about basic infrastructure and services, medical, access to medical facilities, access to sewerage facilities, these are important things that people within the urban areas should have access to, but due to the increase in population, then we are not able to do that. We can have a very good example within our own areas. If you've been to Nairobi, you know that there are times when it rains, there are streets that you cannot pass through just because of the drainage. And this is just some of the examples that we can look at. There are other cities that I'm sure have the same problem, or at least have similar urban development challenges as we are facing here in Nairobi. Now, ArcGIS GeoPlanner then comes into play when we're thinking about development, when we're thinking about how do we want to plan the cities with the ecosystems that are already existing in mind. We have a couple of geo-enabled applications, ArcGIS GeoPlanner being one of them. We can also talk about ArcGIS City Engine and ArcGIS Urban within the same family. They are applications that aim to give you a 3D perspective when you're doing your plans, when you're doing your scenario-based planning. So ArcGIS GeoPlanner is a geo-design tool that helps you in creating, in analyzing, as well as reporting your planning alternatives. And I'd like to mention that it is important to note that it is a web-based tool, and you can find it within our ArcGIS Online application. When you go to our ArcGIS Online, then you can access the application ArcGIS GeoPlanner. So let us then look at who can use this. It is important that we realize ArcGIS GeoPlanner can be a very vital tool for professionals who want to get to undertake urban planning, talk about watershed planning, conservation planning, and even forest management within the protected areas, and planning and management within rivers, within our green infrastructure. And these are just some of the examples that we can look at that urban ArcGIS GeoPlanner can be a vital tool to ensure that every objective or every policy we are working on is able to be achieved. How does then ArcGIS GeoPlanner play a role within the ArcGIS platform? So GeoPlanner is integrated across the whole of ArcGIS. Once you create a project, you can see here that once you're able to create a project, you can then share this data with your practitioners, be it urban planners, be it designers, who can then use this to create scenarios. You can see the scenarios in different shades, and they can also get to download or pull these scenarios into ArcGIS Pro and do further analysis where they can then get more data. It is also worth noting that you can integrate ArcGIS or the plans that you create in ArcGIS GeoPlanner into City Engine or ArcGIS Urban. And you can then be able to customize your models and do things where you can even add street elements like facades. And it is also worth noting that you can utilize these scenarios that you create in ArcGIS Hub as well, and make it available for people or stakeholders within the communities you're building in, and use it to gather more information, more advice on the projects that you're trying to do. We can also look at these two other important applications within our portfolio that can make you go above and beyond when you're using ArcGIS GeoPlanner. So when you're talking about the dashboards, you can share and compare your impact performance for your designs and give this to your stakeholders with very summarized data. So they don't really have to do a lot of data analysis. It's already summarized and they only have to look and figure out what each element implies. With Survey 123, you can embed it into your design alternatives. You can embed your design alternatives within the survey form and solicit feedback from the stakeholders you're working with. And any comments that they make that may be relevant to the project you're doing, then you'll go ahead and implement into the plan. So how then do you have access to ArcGIS GeoPlanner? So ArcGIS GeoPlanner, I would like to mention, is a premium application that is hosted within ArcGIS Online, and you must have an organizational account as well as a named user license. So take note that this means you cannot use a public or a personal use account when you're trying to use GeoPlanner, because there are constraints when it comes to using credits. There are things that when you're doing in ArcGIS GeoPlanner, or activities that when you're undertaking in ArcGIS GeoPlanner, you consume credits. And this means you need to have an organizational subscription to then be able to use ArcGIS GeoPlanner. What can you then do when you're using ArcGIS GeoPlanner? It is important for you to realize that you can get to explore existing conditions. So the app is able to simplify your planning process by leveraging data from a very wide variety of data sources. With a complete analysis of the surrounding environments, you have data about existing conditions, and you can then use this to contextualize and better inform your planning processes. So with it, you can discover your shared resources within your organization and add them to your projects. You can also assess site suitability and conditions using either spatial analytics or even data enrichment to be able to then figure out how to go about planning your area. You can also use assessments in dashboard to help you in understanding how your designs then interact with the site and explore conditions within your area of study. You can also design and sketch with ease. So you can use the freehand drawing or feature painting tools, which are available in ArcGIS GeoPlanner, to sketch multiple design scenarios. And as you sketch, your dashboard helps you to then visualize the suitability and probable impacts by comparing your designs to the assessments that you're doing. You can also import features into the scenario to then help you understand existing conditions. As I mentioned, you can also integrate ArcGIS GeoPlanner within the ArcGIS platform. You may want to design your plans within Pro and then upload or publish these plans in ArcGIS Online. And once you do that, then you can even add these designs into your plan as you move along your projects, which I think is a very important thing, because then you're not limited to the sites that you're using. You can use either Pro, you can create your designs in ArcGIS Online, and then just upload them into your plan. So with ArcGIS GeoPlanner, you can then evaluate the impacts of your plans and then make comparison between the alternatives. Now, GeoPlanner allows you to assess and even compare your alternatives in two modes. You can do it either in 2D or 3D with either a side-by-side perspective or using the KPI dashboards and summary reports. I'll get to show you how this works during our demonstration. And then you can also use the comparison and evaluation tools to help you to visualize the designs that you're doing and how the impact they'll have within the environment you're working on will look like. Think about being in a position to be able to compare designs and their impacts, and then being able to see the differentiation, whether visually or even through the calculations that you can see through the dashboard. Then you are able to inform. Once you're able to do all these activities, you can then inform your designs with very powerful analytics. So scenario planning within either environmental ecosystems, urban ecosystems require very thorough and rigorous testing. And with ArcGIS Online, with ArcGIS GeoPlanner, you have access to tools such as the overlay analysis that simplifies your landscape planning process. And it's able to deliver you very clear analytics that help in identifying critical issues for your existing as well as proposed designs. You can also use GeoPlanner to leverage on the built-in metrics and dashboards that will help you in tracking, in evaluating, and even reporting on the impact of your designs. So you're able to come up with very clear metrics and very clear data analytics that will then be useful for you to make conclusive decisions that will be relevant to the projects that you're doing. And GeoPlanner is an end-to-end planning solution that helps you balance environmental constraints with proposed or existing projects. You can also get to make iterative scenario. You can also get to use iterative scenario planning with ease. And this is where you may be working on a project that looks similar. So there's no point for you to do this over and over again. It is very easy for you to just continuously use the same layers that you created and use the same data that you created. So GeoPlanner helps you to showcase your geodesign alternatives that are very data informed and visually impactful and very interactive, as I mentioned, because you're able to see it in 2D as well as in 3D. So with project screening capabilities, you're able to identify opportunities and your constraints and maximize your performance and also mitigate your potential constraints within your planning designs. So our workflow, when we look at ArcGIS GeoPlanner, is very simple. It has a very simple workflow that ensures you're able to achieve your planning objectives while also saving on time. You just create your project, you're able to explore data and add data from various sources, as I'd mentioned, design this, and then evaluate and share with the relevant stakeholders. You can see that I have highlighted the last 2 steps of this workflow because our webinar today is going to be focusing on the evaluation and sharing stage within the planning process. So we're going to look at how are you then able to evaluate as well as share your plans within the ArcGIS GeoPlanner platform. Okay, let us then jump right into our demo. So I'd like to first of all mention what our scenario is, because I think that will be relevant for us before we actually jump into doing the activity itself. So we'll assume that we are GIS analysts for a town, and we've been asked to compare 2 designs for new residential areas. So we're trying to build new residential areas. And we're going to assume that our designs should be able to consider green infrastructure preference. We should also be able to look at the soil types which are able to have buildings built on them, and then the cost of creating these new residential areas. So that is going to be our scenario. And as we move along the planning process, you'll be able to see how our consideration will be on these 3 key elements. Okay. So let us then go right ahead and begin our demo. So to access ArcGIS GeoPlanner, as I mentioned, you first need to log into your ArcGIS Online account, and it is from your ArcGIS Online account within the app launcher, which is on the very far right of our screen, where you get to access a multiple number of applications. And today our focus will be ArcGIS GeoPlanner. So once we do that, you'll be asked to log in. And when you do that, this is going to be your interface. So with this, you can see that you're able to either visualize or see your existing projects. And here you can choose to delete and even edit and check out the details of the different projects that you're working on. So today we are going to create a new project. And when you click Create New, then you get to see a variety of templates. Within ArcGIS GeoPlanner, there are a number of templates that can be used by different professionals. You have a template for green infrastructure development, for economic development, you have a land use planning template, and these are just some of the ones that you can access. You can also access templates that you've created yourself or templates that have been created online. So today we are going to look at GeoPlanner. We're going to look at the GeoPlanner Green Infrastructure template. And once you do that, you have templates for assessing green infrastructure, templates for comparing, and the GeoPlanner template for green infrastructure planning. So we're going to go ahead and select the compare. And when you do that, a page will come for you to be able to then fill in the details of the project that you're working on. And you can put a summary as well. Our tags today will be GeoPlanner and green infrastructure. Yeah, so once you do that, then you'll click create, and then your project is going to be created. So this process takes a while. I've gone ahead and done that for us. So when you do that, this is where you're going to be taken to, and this is now your project page, your project management or working page. And here you can see you have a multiple number of tools that you can access. So today we're going to go ahead and add different data that is relevant for us within this project. So when you do this, you'll go to explore. You'll go to explore. And once you click explore, you can add data, you can do your analysis, and you can also create your models. So we're going to add data from all, which accesses ArcGIS Online. And then once you do that, you can find all the data that you want. If you remember, I mentioned that you're going to be looking at the buildable soils. We'll also be looking at the cost, and we're also going to be looking at the green infrastructure development. So I'd gone ahead and added this data. And you can see from my screen here that we were able to add the new residential layers for scenario B, the new residential areas for scenario A, the majority rating for buildable soils in scenario A as well as B. Now, once that is complete, you are able to then see the different layers that you're working with. And if we just switch them off, you can see what each represents. So you can also get to change your base map if you want. If you don't want to work with this, you can also change your base map through this tab here and select the kind of base map that you're looking for. Now, once we do that, we'll go ahead and modify our scenario, because we don't want to have just one scenario as we do right now. We want to add another scenario that we will then use as an alternative and a comparison for the plan that we are working on. So we'll click on duplicate, and when we do that, we'll add another scenario and name it scenario B. We'll also add our tags. We'll also go ahead and add our tags and click save. So once you do that, just 1 minute. So once we do that, our scenario is going to be updated into the plan, and you are going to see that the tab here has changed to scenario B. So this is now updated. We have two scenarios, scenario A and scenario B. Now we'll go ahead and import and modify scenario B by importing features. If you remember, I mentioned that you can work with data from ArcGIS Online as well as ArcGIS Pro. Now you can create your designs beforehand and just import them into the plan. And that is what you're going to do right now. So the source is going to be new residential scenario B. Our target will be the new residential area for Deerford. And then we'll add. So we're going to choose the feature type mapping, which is going to be, our target is going to be the new residential. We are not going to change anything in the field mapping, and you're going to click import. Once we do that, you can check out the status of your jobs here to see if it's completed or not. And once it's completed, you can then go ahead and see. I want us to turn off this other layer so that you can see what I'm adding. So you can see I've added the new residential plan for Deerford. Now, once we do that, we're going to also import the buildable soil data. So we're going to do the same thing. Our source is going to be the majority rating of buildable soils in scenario B. And you're going to go ahead and select the source, which is going to be the majority. We're not going to change anything here. And then we'll click import. Once we do that, then that data is also added into the plan. Now, you will tell the difference because this is scenario B, and when you go to scenario A, there won't be any data added other than the new residential area. So we're going to do the same thing here. We'll click import. And from the source, we're going to add the new residential area. Our target is going to be the new residential area plan for Deerford. And we'll click on next, and then we're going to choose the target as well and choose new residential area and press next. We're not going to change anything in the field, and then we'll click import. So once you do that, then the same thing will happen to this. You'll have the majority rating for buildable soils added, as well as the new residential plan for Deerford added. Now, if you want to see what each represents, you'll check your legend. Let us just close this and look at the legend from this side. You can see what each means, what the green is, what the red stands for, which is very limited, so you can't build in these areas, and you can build in these areas, but you'll be somewhat limited. So now that we have our two scenarios and we've been able to import the evaluation process, now, you will go ahead and click on evaluate. First of all, we'd like to make the scenario that is active to be scenario A, and then we'll go ahead and click evaluate. So I'd mentioned before that you can do various evaluation processes within this application. You can choose to do side by side, you can swipe, you can also do a 3D visualization of your project, you can create reports and visualize the dashboard. So we're going to begin by looking at the side by side. And when you do that, then your data is going to be added into you can get to view scenario A on one side, and we're going to activate scenario B for this other side. We'll also go ahead and activate the new residential plan just to be able to visualize this. Okay, so I'm going to post some information on the chat for you to compare with me, and then we'll get to see how this we'll get to see how this application then will help us to make a decision that is relevant to our plan at the end of the day. So let me just post that on the chat. Give me just 1 minute. Okay. So there you go. Now that is going to be our data that we're going to try and ensure our plans are able to follow. So let us then go back ahead to our project and see how we'll go ahead and do this. So we are back to our project here. Now, whatever you do on one side is what will be visualized on the other side. So if I scroll into one plan, then I'm going to see the same area within the other plan. Now, in this case, we want to be able to, first of all, look at our dashboard. We've already visualized it. Through just looking at it. 1 second, please. Okay, so I hope you now have access to the information that we'll be working with. So our aim is to ensure that we are able to have the new area that will be building our residential area to have access to at least 712 acres of land provided for. We should also have less than 5% of the area with high value green infrastructure. And we should also be able to have 30 acres of the land that we will have getting at least a favorable soil for residential area. And our project should not cost more than $6 million. So with that in mind, let us then go ahead and look at the data that we are working with here. So we'll go and click on the dashboard. And once we click on the dashboard, then you'll see some information is being extracted from the project into a dashboard that will look like this. So let me just expand it for us to see. And you can see the difference because it is taking, so this side is taking data from scenario A and this other side is taking data from scenario B. Now we'll go ahead and just look at what each, as this green infrastructure loads, we'll go ahead and look at what data we are working with. So I mentioned that the cost of conversion in scenario A, you can see, is 9.67 million. The acres of favorable soil for residential areas in scenario A is 80.3 million. So this has not loaded, but ideally you should have a percentage for how much green infrastructure is available within this area. And you remember I mentioned that we should have less than 5% of green infrastructure located within the area that you're going to build our residential buildings. So with this, you can see that we have $9.67 million. We have 80.3% here, and our acreage, the new residential area acreage, is this. For scenario B, on the other hand, you can see that we have For scenario B, on the other hand, you can see that we have 91 acres of favorable soil. For the residential area, we have the cost of conversion as 12.12 million, and you can just visualize through that data. You can see that which among these two is then favorable for us to build. I want us to go to one that had already completed and use that to go ahead and then make an alternative. So we'll just do the same thing here. So we're going to click on the dashboard and expand this and also expand this. And you can see that we have this added. So the cost here is 4.84. The acres is 80. And for scenario B, the cost is 7.36 million. So within this, then you can make a conclusive decision that scenario A then is better than scenario B when it comes to choosing an ideal site for us to build our residential areas. If you want to actually verify this, you can click on individual the pie pieces just to see the percentage of each. So not limited, meaning this is the land that we are able to build in, is 9.60%. And when you come to this, then our portion for us to build in is very limited. It's 0.87%, which is a very small number for us to actually consider. So we'll then conclusively come to a decision of saying that you're going to go ahead and choose scenario A and not scenario B. Now, when it comes to then sharing this information or getting to sharing this information with probably stakeholders, you can come and you'll come to your tab here and you can choose to, first of all, we'll click save, and then once you are able to do that, I want us to create a report from this information. So we'll go ahead and click on report, and you can choose either to create an indicator report or a baseline report. So today we are going to generate a KPI report. And when you do that, this dialog box is going to come up for you to select. Now we are going to click on a scenario and baseline indicator report. Under the scenario, we're going to select both scenarios, scenario A and B. And then we'll go ahead and choose the indicators that we want. So we want a new residential acres layer added. We want the cost of conversion, and we also want the acres of favorable soils. And then we're going to run this. And when you run, you're going to get a notification for you to download. So this will be downloaded as an Excel report that you can then add to your report as you're doing your report to the stakeholders. I'd gone ahead and done this. So I just want you to show, I want to show you the kind of report we'll be looking at. I want to show you the kind of reports that you'll be looking at when you're doing this. So this is what you will see. So the different scenarios will be showing the number of acreage for each, the cost of conversion for each, as well as the acres of favorable soil for each. And with this, you can then tell the stakeholders that we came to a conclusive decision that then scenario A is better because of the cost is very favorable for us, and the amount of acreage we'll be working with is also favorable, and the soil type that we'll be building on is also favorable. Now, that brings us to a conclusion on our demo. I would like to invite any questions that you have as we move forward in this.